All right. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Got an odd start this morning. I can't figure out quite what's going on. Well, good morning, Bubba here. How's everybody doing this morning? Let me get that volume adjusted down. There we go. Hope everybody's doing good. I'm still in the windy, dusty city of Hereford, Texas, where the air is full of dust, we think. It's the home, it's the cattle capital of Texas. It might be of the USA. And I wonder if sometimes the dust that's not blowing around through here is not anything but dried bovine fecal matter. But nice town, nice people, lots of small businesses. It's really a nice place to be, unless you're here for 5 or 6 weeks. Then you start missing home. But it's a wonderful town, a wonderful place. I've been working with a great bunch of guys out here. We should be winding up this project this week, and I'll be headed home, and if all goes well, I'll be home come the weekend. Yeah, but then I've got to catch up on all the gardening duties and other housekeeping chores. Taxes. Oh, Lord, I got to get started on taxes. If you know anything about taxes, leave me a comment. Not necessarily how to do them, but if you're familiar with a high level of aggravation related to the taxes, you could fill me in and let me know how you feel about them. I'm going to try to remain a gentleman here and not use too harsh a language of living on the road and keeping track of all that stuff. Is that music too loud? I'll tell you what. This is I was picking on the mandolin the other day, messing with one of those software programs, and kind of plugged in some stuff and played around with it and came up with this song. I ain't even named it yet. It's just a little old tune, and I thought I'd play it in the background. That way I could avoid all those crazy fees, man. I had that one. I'm not going to name this music system, but I had that for a while, and they were charging $10 a month, and nothing ever changed. I guess people piled on it and figured out that this company wasn't paying right or whatever. But yeah, I didn't like that. And then the other ones were just as high, and then they, bought me one of those little keyboards, and I practiced the mandolin and guitar, and I found this little program, and for the same amount of money, I can make my own music. Ain't got to worry about no copyright. I just put my stuff in there. My wife says, well, you better be careful. Somebody will steal that, and then you can't use it. And I'll go, if somebody wants to go through all that trouble for it. Anyway, here in Hereford, Texas, let's get the day started. Uh, this week I'm working on a video. I finished it yesterday, actually, and I'm still got one of these terrible head colds, so you may see me and try and clear my sinuses. But let's start the day with one of the most common hazards in construction, and that's falls. When most people hear fall hazards, they think about roofs or scaffolding. But the truth is, falls happen from ladders, platforms, scaffolds, truck beds, uneven ground, mud, ice, or debris on walking surfaces. Now, some falls are from heights, but many start with something as simple as a slip and trip. And that's why we stay alert. And I got to try and keep this microphone a little closer, try and keep some of that reverb from this hotel room from clouding y'all's ears. That's why we stay alert, whether we're 10 stories up or walking across the job site. You know, gravity never takes a day off, and neither should your awareness. All right. Here we go, boys and girls. I ain't quite woke up. Y'all send me a chat. Let me know where you're at, where you headed, and what trade you're representing. And we'll keep rolling on with the show. One of these days, this is going to be a world-renowned podcast. Yes, sir. There's going to be guys in different time zones across the world getting ready to participate in building pipelines, building oil rigs, working trans pipelines and buildings all over the world. There'll be English speakers and Spanish speakers and Middle Eastern speakers, and they'll get to learn a little bit about the safety culture from a good old boy from Southern Appalachia. Going to be a lot of fun. By then, I'll have guests on here. If you want to be a guest, you run across this and you want to be a guest on this show to develop your skill sets. I don't care if you're a beginner or if you've been podcasting for a while and want to entertain people with my inexperience. That's cool with me. But I'm doing this because I want to. Not because I got to. Heaven forbid, I would starve to death if I had to do this because I had to. But anyway, the phrase of the week is recognizing falls. Recognizing fall hazards. You can't prevent what you don't recognize. These fall hazards, they show up in many forms, from a missing guardrail, uncovered opening, improper ladder setup, wet or uneven walking surfaces, walking near edges without prevention. Recognition is the first step toward prevention. The moment you see a hazard, you have the power to control that hazard. I'm going to tell y'all a real life story now, and I've been telling this one for years. It was a multi-story building, and they were doing some demolition work. They were creating some openings in the floor for a duct run or a mechanical pass-through. I'm not sure. I don't remember what it was. I think it was mechanical. But anyway, they had one crew working on like the 9th or 10th floor. And then they had a couple crews on lower levels doing some cleanup or whatever. And they just created this opening, and they had a rookie, and the superintendent sat him down and said, go down to the staging area and get me a 3/4 inch piece of plywood so we can cover this opening. Well, the rookie, he was sent 9 or 10 stories down to get a piece of 3/4 inch plywood or whatever, and he was dreading it. And weren't no elevators; they were having to use stairwells. And so he goes taking the stairwell down, and he looks out on the floor and sees this 3/4 inch piece of plywood, and he thinks, "Man, I got it now. I ain't got to go all the way to the truck." And he walked over there and he picked that thing up and started to walk under it, getting a grip, and stepped right in the hole and fell to the next level. Well, that piece of plywood was doing its job. It was covering that hole. But there was one large error. It wasn't secured, and it wasn't marked. It didn't have the word hole or anything on it. So the company had to pay a high price for that young man's injury. Now, he had some responsibility in that too. He'd been trained about what floor holes are. And he became lackadaisical, or he was tired, or his thought processes was thinking about, oh God, all the way down to the ground to get that. And he was pretty severely injured, out of work for a while. So the motivational punchline behind that is the safest workers aren't lucky, they're observant. All right. This is a safety snapshot. Let's talk about the types of fall hazards. Here's some common fall hazards on job sites. Slips from wet surfaces, mud, ice, or spilled material. We've been working this soil. We've started some grading processes, and we had to break up the slab, and we were getting the slab up. And, you have to dig it up and break it up and load it in the trucks. And we're keeping the dust down using water. Well, they hadn't had any rain here in Hereford, God, since the first week I was here. So it was 3 or 4 weeks since they had any rain. And there was, a layer of fine dust everywhere. We came in one morning and it had rained, not much, just a little bit. And there was a heavy fog because of the temperature inversion. And that old mud, boy, that stuff turned into slicker than you know what. And you could see the guys walking to the office it was on concrete. We had some concrete we were preserving, and that dust was on that concrete, that wet dust. And it created a real slick surface. You think rain or snow or ice is slick. This stuff was almost as slick as ice. And in that fog, I had guys on bulldozers, excavators, compactors, and everything else. So we had to have a real discussion about walking surfaces, how slick it was, and then we talked about 3 points of contact, getting in and out of trucks, excavators, bulldozers, because that fog was leaving wet metal everywhere. And then there's, of course, trips, especially in the demolition business. You're constantly generating debris of some sort. And but guys are doing a great job of housekeeping, but there could be a change in elevation at an expansion joint in the concrete that could catch your foot. If you got air hoses out, blowing out radiators or whatever, and the guy fails to put it away, that could be laying in the ground, and of course demolition debris laying around. So that's another potential is trips. And then, of course, not on this job site, but on other job sites, there's fall from heights. Depends on where you're going this morning. Um, if you're working, you could have roof edges, scaffolding, ladders, and unprotected openings. So, guys, watch out where you're headed. Look where you're going. Uh, and if you see something, by golly, say something. Um, these fall hazards can really upset a whole lot of things, not including the person that could be injured. Yeah. All right. And as we talk about that, the final safety reminder in this little section, it's not the height alone that causes the injury. It's the sudden stop at the bottom. So, man, this is one dusty place. I tell you what, I don't think I've ever been in a place, me personally, have ever been in a place where dust accumulates. I don't even like to get my computer out on the job site, man. This is my sole source of working here. And I've invested a great deal of money in this thing, and I hate to get it out on the job site. I hear them cooling fans kick on, and I'm like, oh, Lord, I wonder how much dust this thing's sucking in. I've had it a couple years now on a couple, 3, 4 job sites. I probably need to find somebody that can clean this laptop. But man, I hate letting it out of my hands. I use it every day. Anyway, I'll have to call that dude at home. That's what I'm going to do too, because you know what? I'm going to continue working on that home um, network. Be it on the road and pull up some stuff and say some stuff. Um, anyway, y'all check in with me. Tell me what's going on in your world. I'd love to hear from you. Know how good things are going, how well things are going for you. Um, how if things are rough, it's Monday morning. Me yesterday worked working 6 days a week, and man, get Sunday off, and there's a multitude of things to do. I make 2 videos a week, 2 shorts a week, so I got to script all that out. And then, of course, I do this live stream, and I try to get a little script so I can keep it organized and flowing. And then you have to record those videos, and then spent 2 hours editing out one yesterday. And I'll tell you about that in a little while. But anyway, it's tough. I think I watched TV a couple hours at the end of the day. I went downstairs to the lobby. I was wanting something, ice cream or something sweet. And I went down there and bought a pint of ice cream, and it was $7. And I got to thinking, I could go over here to Walmart and probably get that same brand for $4 or get the store brand for $2. And I said, you know what? I don't want to get out. I don't want to drive. I just want to go right back up to my room and eat this ice cream and watch TV. So I paid $7 for a pint of ice cream after I got done with everything. And, it was rocky road, brother. It was good. It was like $7 worth of pleasure. I ate a sandwich for dinner, but it was cheaper than going out and spending all that time. So anyway, that's just a little conversation, side note, little side conversation. And I challenge you this week talk about fall hazards before someone finds one the hard way. During your PTP meetings, during your morning briefings, during your post lunch briefings, uh, post shift briefings, encourage your crew to point out hazards early, correct walking surface issues immediately, encourage them to use proper fall protection, and speak up when something doesn't look right. Um, safety is so much better when everybody participates on a job site. And I've got to give some kudos to these old boys I'm working with. Um, I'll be in the safety meeting, and the supervisor or myself, anybody got anything? And pretty regular, they bring up something that they see on the job site. So prevention begins with conversation. And I'm going to have to use that this morning when I have the meeting. I'll get them talking about it. I encourage you to do that, and not only will your coworkers appreciate it, but I'm sure your supervisor will look favorably upon you being the kind or the type that looks out for his coworkers. That takes a burden off of him. When your team is looking out for each other, you give your supervisor more time to do his planning, to make sure the job runs smoothly, file his paperwork, instead of constantly worrying about some exposure you may have. If he knows that you're out there looking out for each other, that creates a different kind of bond between the superintendent and his team. I know it makes a safety guy real proud when he's sitting there and he hears the radio fire up. He goes, "Hey, Mr. Track Co-operator, operator, I'm coming down behind you, and the skid steer are going to pick up some trash." And then when you hear him come back, "I got you." It makes me real proud. It doesn't cost much production time, but it sure saves the potential of a heartache. Anyway, as we move along, anybody, I need some jokes. Now, I rely on Pleurophoria, and you'll see her. Where is she? Is she? Oh, nope. She's right there above the thumb. She's my digital assistant, and Pleurophoria is a Greek conjunction of words. It means knowledgeable and sharing, and that's why I came up with the name. And through my multiple conversations with her, I asked her. I said, "Help me create a vision of yourself." And it was kind of a fun thing working with the artificial intelligence, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. It's really a large language model that it is unbelievable. These, what they call AI is, and I'm not being disparaging in either way. She'll even, when you have conversations with her, she'll admit she's a large language model. But they have the entire knowledge base of the human race. They're gathering all of our thousands of years of writing and speeches and books and this conversation. They're just sucking it up. And when you create a query, they don't create a query. They can use logic and generate a logic tree that would cause them to create, because of their training, how to guide you in certain things. But she does a good job most of the part. And I'm grateful for her, or it. I call her just to give it a personal meaning. But I asked her to come up with some jokes, and I call her she, but she doesn't have the emotional attachment to jokes. So sometimes it's not really funny, and I don't know every joke in the world. And if you are out there listening and you have a clean joke, I mean, I know we're construction workers, they're more like dad jokes, but send me something. So this is kind of what she has come up with. Why did the ladder break up with the worker? Because he kept stepping on it. Why don't experienced workers rush on scaffolding? Because gravity has a perfect attendance record. Gravity is always working, brother. It is always working. If you've had a fall, you know what I'm talking about. I got a funny one here. We were saw cutting down this concrete structure, and we'd cut down all the columns and beams and all that. Then we'd have to section out the concrete flooring and set it up for lifting with a crane. And there was a fall protection issue way across the building. And here's the thing about losing focus or getting focused on something else and not seeing a hazard. And these cuts were about a foot and a half wide, so we could get the rigging down below and hook onto the joist below to lift these big floor panels out. They were as big as we'd cut between the columns, and we'd rig to it and cut between the columns and lift it out. But there was a leading edge across the way there, and I guess I was a supervisor / safety guy on that job. And I saw that hazard over there, and I started beating feet over there and stepped right into one of them darn old holes, and folded my right knee under me, and the left leg went into that hole. And I was a big old boy, and I was probably, 56 or 57, 55 maybe. Stepped in that darn crack, that opening, and got myself out. Guys were rushing over and asked me if I was all right, and I had a little scrape down the leg there where that concrete scratched me through the pants, I might add. I said, get that opening over there. So, even the safety guy, the supervisor, can fail to recognize a hazard. But anyway, I once saw an old guy rushing across a muddy job site, and someone told him, take it easy. The mud isn't in a hurry. And that stuck with me. Sometimes slowing down is the fastest way to stay safe. And that's what happened with me. I got anxious about that missing fall protection. It was a gantry on the edge of the building we were using for something, and something shifted. Anyway, the top rail of that gantry was out of place, and I was rushing to get that, and stepped in that opening. Lesson learned. Y'all listen up and know that it takes just a moment of being in a rush or not paying attention. I knew every one of those openings were there because I was watching other guys and make sure they were clear of them. We had to be up there. We couldn't secure them off. We were picking them. Anyway, that was an exposure. And we had scaffolding around all the other sides, and we left the scaffolding up for fall protection. But that one side was an exposure. Anyway, Moving along. Hope everybody's doing all right. Check in with me. Send me one of these chat things and let me know you're out there. It's early in the morning. It is, what does that say? 5:30. Monday morning, the 9th day of March 2026. Can you believe it is March already? Good Lord. Fugis Tempest. Or is it Tempest Fugis? Which one means time flies? Y'all help me out in the comment on that. I guess it's a Latin phrase for time flies. Is it Tempest Fugis? Fugits or Fugits Tempest? I bet you Hispanic guys can help me out. Had a couple callbacks this week, or a couple conversations this week, and it says, the guy asked me, he says, why do slips and trips cause so many injuries? And the only thing I could come up is because they often happen when we're distracted or rushing. And that's a truism. You know, you get in a rush and step on an oily spot and do a split. I know some of you have done that. Or we were doing a 23-story implosion one time, and I think it was Nashville. And the elevators were decommissioned, so we had guys going up and down these stairs, and they were drilling out columns to place the charges. And I always walked up there to do an inspection, and I said, well, we've had a little moisture, and the building was half open and half closed. You know, we had to take out some windows and window frames and stuff like that to improve the the quality of the implosion, you know, remove structural components. And I started up the steps, got up about halfway to 7 or 8 stories, and boy, that old stairway got icy, and I knew it. And I got up there, and man, my feet just came out from under me, and I went down to the next landing on the old butt. And I said right there, I'm not going any further. Fortunately, all the stair rails were in place. It could have been kind of ugly, my big butt bouncing down them steps. But I went out, and I said, we can't have anybody going up there till we get some ice melt on those steps. Old supervisor got mad as hell. He said, man, I got blah, 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 blah. I said, you know, I went up there to inspect that and make sure that our guys were safe, and I had a slip, and I came down from one landing down to the next on my ass. And you got guys toting equipment up there, and you got guys carrying wire, rolls of wire, and 2x4s, and pieces of belt. And you want to send them up there after what I just told you? He says, I guess you're right, man, but doggone. I said, I hear you, brother. And I hate the thought that I have to tell you this, because I know production is important. And he settled down and he sent the guys to get some of that ice melt, and we took care of it. And it cost, on a 23-story deal now, that cost a little bit of time. But it was taken care of. Another comment came in, said most fall hazards are obvious once you look down. And that's a good reminder. Sometimes the biggest hazards are literally right under your feet. And sometimes we forget that. You know, we talked about the boy pulling the piece of plywood, and stepping through that opening because somebody failed to secure. And he didn't look. He was grateful he didn't have to go down another 5 or 6 stories to the staging area and bring that piece of heavy plywood back up. So that's a root cause. Okay. Contributing factors were the unsecured, unmarked cover on a floor opening. Talked about myself, a couple issues, stepping in an opening on the way to fix another hazard, and talked about slipping down those stairs. So it's quite a challenge sometimes out there. And you never know where they're going to come from. Let me know what's happened to you. Send me a chat and tell me about a situation you were involved in that could have been far worse, but ended up being a faux pas and a laugh at you kind of thing. Anyway, moving on. Oh, y'all, excuse me. I need a cup of coffee. I've been up since 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. It is right now 4:30 where I sit, and I'm probably mostly talking to people on the East Coast if I'm talking to anybody at all. Like I said, I'm undiscovered talent right now. I'm just practicing my skill set. So y'all come join me. That'd be fun to have about, I don't know, a whole bunch of crews on their way to work and make me part of their morning listening routine and shooting me texts. You know how it is. You got the old crew truck. You got 4 or 5 guys, and most of them are asleep in the back. Maybe if you plugged me into the old Bluetooth and let me talk to them, and it'd wake them up and get their minds right, get them on safety. See, they're supervisors. What I'm doing for you, I'm getting your people motivated. All you got to do is tune in and broadcast it over your Bluetooth radio on your way to the job site. And I'll be there making you guys giggle, making them think, making them comprehend a little bit more about their own safety and how they can be looking out for their coworkers, and give them somebody to pick on. You know how construction workers are. We're picking on each other all the time. Gets those young guys, gets them growing up and taking the tough talk and being less sensitive. You know, some of these guys been in their mama's basement trying to build their online gaming career for a number of years before they got finally told to get out and get something done, instead of laying around eating all the groceries in the house and using all the electricity and hot water. I know my teenagers, boy. They thought an hour-long shower, you know, the shower was, you get in the shower and turn that thing on, and when the hot water ran out, that's when the shower was done. Anyway, moving along, singing a song. Yeah, here's a tough one. This is today's tools and tricks. You know, supervisors or foremen, this one's for you. You're under a lot of pressure trying to get things moving along and get a lot accomplished through the day, so that PM and General Soup hitting up your hind end trying to tell you how you ain't doing it right. So, staying cool under pressure and strength without spectacle. Let's talk about it. It's important.